I now recognize the ranking member for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. H.R. 459 requires a full audit of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Federal Reserve Banks by the Comptroller General. I certainly support the aim of this legislation, but I am concerned that the impact would be to make far-reaching and unprecedented changes to the very nature of the Federal Reserve by limiting the independence that has for decades been the cornerstone of that institution. Let me be clear. It is not necessary for Congress to pass this Act to conduct an audit of the Federal Reserve. Federal Banking Agency Audit Act of 1978 opened the Federal Reserve System to audit, and regular audits have been conducted since that date. More recently, in response to the concerns of many members, myself included, regarding the extraordinary measures undertaken by the Fed during the financial crisis, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act significantly expanded GAO's ability to audit Fed activities. First, Section 1109 of Dodd-Frank required GAO to audit the emergency financial assistance provided by the Federal Reserve during the financial crisis. In July 2011, GAO released the audit required by this section. More broadly, under Dodd-Frank, the Federal Reserve's open market transactions and discount window operations are subject to audit to assess their operational integrity, accounting, financial reporting, and internal controls. Further, the Federal Reserve's Board's Open Market Committee's meeting minutes are now released just weeks after the meetings occur, while full transcripts of the meetings are released after a 5-year delay. In recognition of the Fed's independence, the Federal Banking Agency Audit Act specifically prohibited the GAO from reviewing the following: transactions with foreign central banks or governments, deliberations, decisions, or actions on monetary matters, transactions made under the direction of the Federal Open Market Committee, and communications among or between members of the Board and officers and employees of the Federal Reserve System related to these issues. The Federal Reserve is an independent central bank, and that independence is critical to its ability to conduct monetary policy in pursuit of its dual mandate of promoting maximum employment and stable prices. While many believe that submitting the Federal Reserve's monetary policy deliberations to audit will expand transparency, the reality is that subjecting these deliberations to audit, including audits without any significant elapse of time from the point of decision, could influence how they are conducted and potentially even the policies that are chosen, thus degrading the true independence of the Federal Reserve. Additionally, if all restrictions on GAO's ability to audit the Federal Reserve's deliberative processes are removed, members of Congress could seek to influence the Federal Reserve's deliberations in specific directions by the types and subjects of audits they request. Members could seek to obtain from GAO documents related to the Federal Reserve's deliberations, including internal emails between Board members and between Board members and staff of the Federal Reserve. I do believe the Federal Reserve's operation should be subject to thorough review. However, I believe that actions that would impede the independence of the Federal Reserve to implement monetary policies responsive to our nation's current economic situation and supportive of its congressionally established mandates should be rejected. For these reasons, I will propose several amendments in order to address these concerns. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The amendment I am offering would ensure that the audit required by this bill does not intrude on the Federal Reserve's independence by amending the legislation to keep the deliberations conducted by the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors regarding monetary policy closed to review by GAO. Additionally, my amendment would ensure that discussions or communications among or between members of the Federal Reserve Board or between Board members and officers and employees of the Federal Reserve System regarding monetary policy remain protected. As I said in my opening statement, the Federal Reserve's independence from political interference is central to its functioning. This independence is critical to ensuring that the Board of Governors can implement the monetary policy measures they determine to be most responsive to our nation's economic needs and most likely to fulfill the Federal Reserve's dual mandate of maximizing employment and stabilizing prices. Exercising their independence during the financial crisis, the Fed has been able to implement monetary policies that have been essential to strengthening and stabilizing our economy. As I said, I certainly support expanded transparency over the Federal Reserve's operations. For that reason, I supported the provisions in Dodd-Frank that ensured the Fed's extraordinary lending facilities were fully audited. I also supported the provisions in Dodd-Frank to enable GAO to audit open market transactions and other Fed transactions to ensure that risk is adequately managed and that appropriate financial controls are in place. And I supported expanded data disclosures required by Dodd-Frank. Under these requirements, certain information regarding discount window lending and open market operations is released on a 2-year delay. Dodd-Frank was carefully crafted to ensure that long overdue transparency was brought to the Fed's operations without impeding the Fed's ability to carry out the critical responsibility of independently setting our nation's monetary policy. Our committee has not held a single hearing on this bill. We should not rush into any measure that will in any way alter the independence without thoughtful reflection on the consequences of such a step on the Federal Reserve System and, more importantly, on our nation. I urge members to protect the independence of the nation's central bank by adopting the amendment. Mr. Chairman, with that, I yield back.